Alright, well today I am going to be showing you how to set up a paper for a grid drawing. Now this process is really not that complicated, but it's something that I have people always ask me about, and so I just wanted to do a quick video to show you how it's done. So just like normal, we have our three different types of pencils, 2B, 4B, and 6B. I am going to be using my 2B pencil. When you're doing a grid drawing, you want to make sure that you are using the lightest pencil you can for the grid drawing part. So what I need you to do is you're going to use your 2B pencil, and then you're going to just put your ruler here right at the top of the page, and I'm going to make a very, very light mark just at each inch mark. So I'm just going to keep doing marks one every inch, just like this. And then I'm going to go along this way. Now, an easy mistake that you can make when you're doing this is you can start at the top of one side, and then because it's easier, you'll flip your ruler this way. Now, if I do that, I'm going to end up with a ½ inch gap right here and a ½ inch gap right here. So to keep things similar, we always want to make sure that we measure from the same spot each side. There we go. Just like that. Okay? So once we have those marks laid out, the next thing that I can do is I'm going to grab my pencil. Now this is super important. When I grab it, I'm not holding it like choked up like I'm doing a math test. I'm going to hold it from the end, and I'm just going to let gravity kind of push down. I'm really not doing much pushing. I'm just letting gravity mark the paper for me. Now you can just see that there's a very, very faint mark right there. The purpose for doing light marks when you're doing a grid drawing is that as we get going on the grid drawing, you don't want these lines on your final project. So if I push down super hard, what I'm actually doing is I'm bruising the paper, and that makes it so that you can't ever fully erase that line. If I do a really light line like this and then decide I want to do some smudging right here, I can actually just about make that line disappear just by smudging. Then if I come back with an eraser, it's pretty much gone. Okay? So we want to make sure that we keep these lines really light, just like this. Okay, so now that I have my grid all set up on my paper, it's time to do the same thing on my source image. Okay, now this is a super important step. I need to make sure that if I measured from the top here, I need to measure from the top again here. If I measured from this side, I'll measure from that side. It's very, very, very important that you measure the same way. Otherwise, you'll have inconsistencies from one image to the other, and it's just going to change it slightly. Now, that might not be a big deal to you, but if you're the type of person that likes things to be perfect, well, you're going to need to pay attention to some of the little details. Now, I gave you a pretty specific instruction that you want to use your 2B pencil on your blank paper. But when we're doing this on the source image, you want to use your 6B pencil. Your 6B pencil is going to be quite a bit darker, which means it's going to show up better, especially on some of these dark areas like I've got on my avocado. So I'm going to make sure that my source image is nice and dark with the lines, but that my paper, my white paper that I'm going to be drawing on, I want to keep that light. I want to preserve those white spaces. You could see somewhere like this area up here or right in here where it's creamy and white. I don't want to be looking at a grid when I'm done with that. I want to be able to erase that. And so if I have dark lines on my drawing, then I'm going to have a hard time getting rid of them. All right, so I have my source image all doctored up here, and I've got my drawing right there. And one thing, this is a trick that might really help you to keep things straight when you get started. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to label these C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. Then down this way, I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, doing that can just help you say, okay, I'm working on F3, and then you can come over here. I don't really like to draw on there, but I might draw on my background here, or I might put a piece of tape coming off. It just kind of helps to keep things straight so that you know what's what. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just start on one of these squares, and the goal of a grid drawing is that you are just trying to copy what's on that square over to the image that you're working on. Okay, so I'm going to start on this square right here just because it's a really easy one to work on. Now, when I'm trying to determine where to start my line, typically what I'll do is I'll just make a little mark at the halfway point, and then I'm going to make another mark at the quarter point, so splitting that space in half. So I'm going to do the same thing here, halfway here, halfway here. So I'm going to cross this line just before half. It's going to cross about there. And then just judging this space right here, I'm going to say that it's about right there. So what I'm doing is I'm just trying to figure out where this line is going to cross. And so this is a curved line. It comes out this way, and then it's going to come down right here. And then I can see that that line is going to kind of kiss this edge of that line right here and then come back to here. So up and down, just like that. Now, when you're doing a drawing like this and you're trying to do just drawing with pencils and shading, we don't really want to see lines. That's why we drew these lines light. That's why we're drawing these lines light. The goal right now is I'm just telling myself where to draw. I'm not trying to draw the whole thing out, but I'm just trying to give myself an idea where to shade. And so what I'm doing right now is, like, with this big area right here, I can sketch it out and just make it a lot easier for me to determine where I want to do my shading. So I've got these light guidelines that are going to help me to determine where I need to shade. And so with each one of these lines, I'm just gauging, like this one is going to be less than half, more than a quarter. It's going to be about right here, about a third of the way. And so I just keep looking at that and then looking at my shape, looking at my image, trying to determine how close am I, how far am I, where do I need to cross. And I just use this. This is a method of getting the proportions of your drawing right. So the next thing that I want to do, now that I've got this figured out, is I'm just looking. There's two ways that you can do this. So the first way is that I can look square by square, and I can just draw this, and I'm going to darken this line, and I'm going to darken this line, and I'm going to darken this line. I'm going to hold my pencil sideways, doing that nice grip that we talked about earlier. I'm going to hold it sideways, and I'm just going to shade smooth and even, going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, just like this. Okay, I'm going to change my pencil direction and shade the other way, back and forth, back and forth. It's super important when you're doing this that you don't leave any space between your pencil strokes. If I can make sure that my strokes are touching, then we've got just a nice, smooth, even value. It's going to look really, really nice. Okay, so go like that. Now, as I'm looking at my source image right here, and as I'm looking at this, I'm quite a bit darker still right there. Now, you can go as dark as you need to if you're doing this square by square method. I would recommend saving it. Like, I mean, you can go 2 or 3 times over one spot, and it's not going to get too dark. But I don't want to go crazy right out of the gates. One of the reasons for that is it's easier to smudge. Another one of the reasons for that is that you want to be able to have some continuity later, and it helps if you're shading more than one thing at a time. Okay. Now I'm going to show you the method of trying to see the whole thing at one time. So if I'm looking here, I'm going to start right about here where this line intersects here, and I'm just following this shadow that kind of comes right here like this. So I'm just going to draw a light guideline it's going to cross up in here just like that. I'll take a quick pencil sharpening break. Okay, so what I'm going to do up here, this is with, oh, that's a 4B pencil. I wonder all those lines are so dark. Okay, so I'm going to take my 2B pencil and I'm just going to do some light shading here. So again, the reason that we use this grip is because shading like this is not a problem at all when you use a grip like this. It's easy to do those long, smooth strokes and make it look really, really nice. Okay, so I'm going to keep coming up here just like this. There you go. Okay, so what I just did is I laid down my base layer for shading. Now, I like to think of shading as a way of building up the value. I like to think of shading as a way of building up the value. So what I'm doing here is I'm just slowly working myself back into the areas that I've already been in. Just smoothing over right here, just like this. Okay? Getting to the point where I feel comfortable with what I see there. Okay? Now, as I'm looking at this, there's this light shadow kind of right around here, but there's a darker shadow that's right here. And that shadow kind of follows a path that looks about like this. So I'm going to take my 4B pencil. Now I'm going to shade that shape. So when I'm done with this, it's going to look a little bit like a rainbow, which is not what I would recommend as a final project. It's not what I would recommend as like what you're trying to aim for as far as your end goal. But it works good to just kind of see where those shadows are and see where you're trying to get to. So again, I'm just building up my value. Just like this. When I'm in this phase of shading, I'm really not pushing down that hard, and so if I go outside the lines, it's not the end of the world. I can always fix it later, unless I'm pushing down really hard, and then I need to be really precise. Okay, the last area of shadow that I want to look at is right here. And so I'm just going to take this just like that. And I'm going to build that up and make it really dark with my 6B pencil. It's really easy when you're beginning drawing to have this line just look like crap. It's not clean, it's not crisp, it's not nice, it just is not that good. What I want though is I want that line to just be like sharp and crisp and clean. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line right here as dark as I want my shading to be. So here I'm going to lighten that line up a little bit. What I'm doing right now, I call back shading. Okay, so I draw that line and then I shade away from it into my shaded area as dark as that line is. And I just try to feather it in there. Now you can see the difference between this and this and this and this right here. This is a much crisper, cleaner line where this is not. So let's fix that real quick.